Welcome to another episode of Living with FASD, an informational and human interest show for those who are affected by prenatal exposure to alcohol, their loved ones, and anyone else interested in learning more about FASD or fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. So, I have had a little mini series of guests on who, like myself, are living with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And today I bring to you a man beloved in our community, Mr. RJ Formanek. RJ, thank you for coming and joining me.
I'm happy to be here. I've seen and heard a number of the casts that you've done, and that's a pretty impressive roster you got going there.
Thank you. I just, well, I don't know what to say other than I just love talking to people. So, and I'm still learning. So from everybody that comes on, I'm a bit of a sponge. I'll say that. I think because I've only known for 4 years or so that I'm on the spectrum, um, and I think lived experience and applied knowledge trumps book knowledge any day of the week. So
Well, definitely.
yeah,
The thing about FASD that I find so fascinating. Now, I'd done my postgraduate in FASD. I wrote my thesis on diagnoses, and
mm,
that was a 2 year truncated course. And I'm continually still learning. It's not
mhm,
upgrading skills, it's learning new stuff.
yeah,
And the problem that I find, especially with the medical people, is they tend to stop upgrading their skills. And
mm,
something with like FASD really hasn't started to be researched until
yeah,
the last 20 years.
yeah,
Like we've known about it since the 70s, it's had an official name, but
right,
there hasn't been a lot of research.
right.
And now that's picking up. For someone like me, I have to be constantly reading, and
Mhm.
these scientific journals come out, and all of these reports, so we can keep on top of it. And
Yeah,
it's super exciting.
it is. It is. So I never knew that about you, that you have your doctorate. So
Um, I think in Canada it's a little bit different. The prerequisite was, I believe, to be a bachelor of social work,
okay.
which I don't have.
Ah,
However, on the basis of my lived experience, I was able to get into the program. Sort of like
cool.
when I didn't go to high school and I took an equivalency test. Like I had to
Right,
be tested for all of the
right.
normal school type things. But I
I
guess if I were religious, you could say I had someone looking over my shoulder and everything went well, and I was able
yeah,
to take this course. So
yeah.
it's considered postgraduate here, but it's not, a fancy thing. I got to wear a robe and do the whole thing. We
Yeah,
had that,
yeah.
but I'm not sure how it compares exactly to a doctorate. I
Well,
wouldn't call
as
myself that.
as some of our guests would say, you have a PhD in life.
Oh, life has been bugging me the whole time I've been here. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it though, because I have my master's in psych and I never took a lab. Go figure.
It's amazing how that can
So,
happen.
yeah.
But yeah, FASD is evolving continuously, and
Mhm.
it's imperative that someone, like myself or yourself, always be on top of what is a often changing battleground
Yeah.
as we learn new things. And for me, brain function is super fascinating. That's why I
Mhm.
love working with. I work with a lot of young adults, and I love working with brains and
Mhm.
explaining and being able to talk to them and explain to them when it's their brain sort of
Yeah.
hijacking them, and it's not something that they're necessarily doing
Right.
wrong,
Right.
just they're not seeing at
It,
this point the pattern.
it's not misbehavior.
For
Yeah.
a lot of people, no, I was
Yeah.
continually in trouble when I was a kid. I was precocious. I was a class clown. But the thing was, I was always getting in trouble because the nexus of the whole biscuit for me was why.
Mhm.
Tell me something to do something, okay, but let me know why.
Yeah.
Don't just tell me this because I'm a naturally curious person.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
of course, many people with FASD are. And
Yeah.
as you might know, if you're trying to hide a secret from us, it's not going to be a secret for too long because we're just built that way.
Yes.
And again, that's back to brain function.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, because, like in my case, I was misunderstood and why was often treated with a backhand instead of an honest answer, which is all I
Mhm.
was looking for,
Yeah.
we end up being traumatized. And there's trauma responses, which you would know about, that come with it. And
Yeah.
it all just sort of balls up. And when you can take all that away, it was like when I got my diagnosis at 47, the therapist sat me down, like as close as I appear to be right now to you. And she sat me down, she looked me square in the eye and said, "It's not your fault."
Mm.
And that was an incredibly moving moment
Yeah.
because I know what I've been. I have not been a good guy all of my life. Absolutely not. And I'm the first to admit it. I'm I'm the one that they warned the other cousins about. I was that one. But I owned it. I didn't know
Yeah.
why,
Yeah.
but I knew I had done these things and I had to take responsibility and own them. And when she told me that, it was freeing because
Yeah.
I could start to forgive myself.
Yeah.
I beat myself up for the things I said and did to other people. Nobody ever saw that.
Yeah.
What they saw was the explosion, me get angry, get into a fight, whatever the case may be, and then I'd be gone. But they'd never
Mhm.
see me, only that.
Yeah. They saw the behavior and never the remorse
Wow,
or
this
the
stuff just,
or the bewilderment, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
like relationships. I did okay with girls growing up. I probably did better than a lot of other people might have. And the thing was, I could not make a relationship. I can be, I can be RJ for a while, but eventually the real me comes out, and I was not capable of bridging that gap
Yeah.
between another human being and myself. And it took me many, many
Yeah.
years, a failed marriage, a whole bunch of live ins and things like that to get to the
Yeah.
point where, again, it began with forgiving myself. And
Mhm.
through that, I'm able to be kinder to other people
Yeah.
because I'm not holding myself to that standard and I'm not trying to hold them to it anymore either.
Yeah.
So
Well,
getting a
that's
diagnosis,
liberating. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It changed me from, I come from a very conservative family and I've always had this fear that as I get older, that's going to start coming out in me. And I'm
Mhm.
finding, actually at this point, my son, who's 45, is the one who's yelling, "Kids, get off my lawn," not me. I'm the one who's saying, "Come on over, kids, let's play." So I don't think that's going to happen. It's just not my personality. And
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to do with my natural birth family at all.
Yeah.
But that's okay because to them, I'm still that bad guy that they talk
Mm.
about from when I was 14.
Mhm.
And I've moved on from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank goodness we move on, right? And we mature. So many of us have dysmaturity, right? We're socially and developmentally, we're way behind, but we do eventually catch up,
Well, yeah.
right?
And Dr. Edward Riley had done preliminary research into the effects of a brain function that happens between about 30 and 40. It's called myelination.
Hmm.
And basically, what it is it's the bundling of our synapses into larger groups with a protective coating
Yeah.
that helps them work faster.
Yeah.
So we know there's a catch up period between 30 and 40, roughly, in that time period. And we also know that developmentally, our brains are still developing long after a
Hmm.
neurotypical brain.
Yeah.
So we can use all of these things to our advantage if we just know that they're there.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting point and one I had not heard before that and because our brains do have a plasticity to them. We are always capable of learning, but for for that to continue at a higher, a higher pace for longer than those who are neurotypical. That's new information for me. And
You can actually find the one paper that they wrote on it, which said we need to do more research in this area because this is very exciting. I've actually
yeah,
talked to Ed, Dr. Riley, about this, and like it really excites me
yeah,
to tell people when they're in their early 20s and they're beating themselves up. It's
yeah,
not always going to be this way. It
right.
does get better.
Yeah. Well, and I always joke about people don't finish developing until they're 25 because that's when they figure out that their parents aren't stupid. But but it really isn't over then. And if it is, then that's very sad
Yeah,
because a
yeah.
life without an attitude of wanting to continue to learn is is one that I kind of feel bad for.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, so that journey to continually learn has driven me through life,
Mhm.
and I've done, apparently I've had almost every job there is at some point or another. I failed a whole lot of times, but I've
Mm.
succeeded a few times.
Mhm.
For
Mhm.
example, I need to go back to when I was 15 and I was getting in a lot of trouble with the law. I had already been removed from my grandparents and had gone through 13 foster homes in 12 months. And
Oh,
they'd run out of places for me.
yeah.
So the last place that they were going to put me was an adult group home for guys just straight out of jail. So I ended up there. I also ended up emancipated at 15, which I thought was a cool thing until they told me that means the next time you're in trouble, you're going straight to adult jail.
Right.
None of this juvenile stuff anymore.
Right. Right.
I ended up in this group home, and the woman there, if there was such a thing as being pre FASD informed, she got it.
Okay.
Um, Now there's a term for it that I've recently just learned because, well, I don't get out a lot, apparently. Holding space for someone.
Yes. Yeah.
The first month I was there, she put no demands on me. I just hid because
Mm.
the last 12 months I had gone through 13 different homes. I
Yeah.
was expecting to be just tossed out at any moment.
Yeah.
And I do this when I get a rescue cat or something. I wait until they open up
Mhm.
and are willing
Yeah.
to show some faith. And that's what she did with me.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was I aged out at 18. She let me stay. Even though I didn't have a full-time job, I was in a
Mhm.
band, and sometimes I had money, sometimes I didn't have money. Sometimes I needed a new drum skin, and well, there went the rent kind of thing.
You just answered my next question. What did you play?
Yes, and I still do.
Awesome.
Um,
I took drums in 4th grade. I wanted to play a drum set, but, I discovered girls are stuck with snare drum.
oh, well, it's a good start
It
anyway.
wasn't nearly as fun.
But she let me stay with part-time jobs and doing that until I was 25.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, rather than just being uh, some guy selling drugs or getting part-time jobs here and there trying to make ends meet, I decided to go to college. She didn't
Yeah.
pressure me. She
Mhm.
gave me the opportunity to learn who I was. All my life,
Yeah.
people described me to myself, but I didn't know who I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
other than by their description. And I slowly started to find out. And I knew I wanted to know more. I lived in
Yeah.
a small town of 10,000 people, nothing going on there, could work
Yeah.
at the mill, retire when I'm 50, and drink myself to death kind of thing.
Yeah. I live in
I
one of
didn't,
those towns.
I did not want that. So suddenly there was an opportunity and I saved up all of my money and I paid my tuition and I went to college and I took broadcasting.
Mhm.
Then I ended up, I wanted to go into radio because I have a thing about a radio type voice kind of thing. And of course, I watched WKRP in Cincinnati when I was growing up, and
That was a
that's
great
who
show.
That is Johnny Fever is who I
Yes.
could see myself becoming. And so that was sort of unfortunately, I started winning awards for my photography, my
Okay.
videography. Not so much the radio stuff. I probably am not the best at radio, but I was one of the best shooters. And so I ended up eventually working for a number of national networks here. I
Okay.
went to Europe and I worked for Television Nova, which is a network in the Czech Republic. I was living in
Mhm.
Prague. And that wasn't really work. That was more like getting drunk with the producers, throwing some ideas at them, and getting paid a little money. It was a great job for about 6 months, but it wasn't really me.
Right.
So this ongoing search for why
Mhm.
has taken me to so many places.
Yeah.
After my divorce, I quit television and I became a long haul truck driver, an 18 wheeler.
That's very
And I did
different.
that for a few years until I broke my spine.
Oh.
These things happen. But it was through breaking my spine and being bedridden and depressed and not wanting to be here anymore that a friend of mine suggested FASD.
Mhm.
Now, because I'd been in the system and was a troubled kid, I've had psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists all my life.
Mhm.
And I have the classic alphabet soup kind of thing.
Yeah.
It, none of it fit properly. It would be like 3 out of 5 things I'd have, but
Yeah.
two major ones I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would get these weird crossing diagnoses and things like that. And
Mhm.
finally, she talked me into going to see this woman. I had no faith in an FASD diagnosis. It was just another set of letters to add to the alphabet I already had.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until after I got my diagnosis and after the diagnostician told me that it wasn't my fault that I finally looked into it. And the first book that I read on it was Bonnie Buxton's book, Damaged Angels.
Mm.
And it's the story of her and her husband, Brian Philcox, raising their daughter, Colette. As I read it, I wasn't seeing all of the things that Colette was doing that I had done. And so I started, this is starting to make sense.
Mhm.
And then I made the mistake of going online. Now, this was, 15, 16 years ago. And what I found online alarmed and upset me.
Mhm. Like you're supposed to die by 34?
That one hadn't come out yet. I can talk to you about that one. I spoke to those those fine researchers who put out that partially finished study to get
Right?
funding. Yeah,
I
that one
just
is,
attended a webinar where they didn't throw the age out, but they made the statement that we die young.
we don't know that. No, but as I tell
Ugh.
people, your story hasn't been written yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have challenges. We have um, 328 comorbidities.
428.
428. There we go. It's a
Yeah.
casual day. I don't have my
Right?
notes.
What's another 100 things?
And those things are going to shorten lifespan, a
Yeah.
lot of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, this whole idea of we can put a number on your life expectancy.
Yeah.
Well, it was a study of less than 1,000 people who were
Mhm.
already diagnosed. Most of us aren't,
Yeah.
and they were all in either the care system or the correctional system.
Right. Which means they never had the services, the support
Weighted
services.
weighted numbers,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
It was just no, it was
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I call it garbage science.
Yeah.
They were trying to get funding by shocking people.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, we have to fight that one quite
I'm
often and fight it
I'm
again.
waiting for the t-shirt that says, hashtag beyond 34.
Oh, no kidding. Um, I have a number of presentations, and one of them, has the big 34 and a big cross through it, and then why is it not 34?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell
Yeah.
you why it isn't.
Yeah.
And what the whole thing was. Yeah, that upset so many people in our
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And when people regurgitate it, It's like, the web fingers or the funny ears or
Yeah.
other things that they come up with that supposedly denote FASD.
Right.
That's a stigmatizing statement.
Mhm.
And we don't have room for that because
Yeah.
we're moving forward, not backward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I lit up the Q&A, uh, thread during the webinar.
I can imagine. Yeah,
I
that's something that you might want to recheck your numbers on that one.
I wasn't all that I wasn't rude, but I wasn't gracious either.
It is really difficult if you're a presenter and you have to go up behind someone and they presented maybe not current or
Yeah.
factual information.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
anywho, the last person was wrong.
I've I've done that. Um, I try to be as nice as possible.
It's just awkward.
It really is. It
It's
really is in
very
that
awkward.
moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But,
You know,
I
for the
think
most part. Oh, sorry. For
I
the
was
most part, presenters all work from the same books. We're all on the
Mhm.
same page. There aren't a lot of presenters who are out there who will knowingly give bad information.
Right,
So
right.
there is that.
Yeah.
And what I'm really loving is seeing all the people on the spectrum who are speaking up, saying
Mhm.
their piece. They don't have to be an advocate or do it forever, but they're,
Yeah.
they're saying, hey, I'm here, I
Yeah.
matter,
Every
and they
voice
have a voice.
matters. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, speaking of voices and having voices, you are the man behind Red Shoes Rock.
Oh, I never would have known.
So, t tell me the genesis of that.
Um, it was my first ever FASD conference. I wasn't a presenter. I was just going to watch and hang out and see what I could learn. And as I was checking in, because I didn't have a credit card, they weren't going to let me stay there. So I'm having this almost meltdown trying to figure out how I'm going to stay in this city I don't live in and things like that. So I was a little bit stressed. And this woman walked up to me and just started talking to me. And she started asking me about my shoes. What the hell? I'm wearing, yeah. I was the classic RJ look is the suit with a pair of red shoes. And that's exactly what I had on.
Okay.
Now, she asked me, "Ooh, that's a little odd. Why are you doing that?" Basically, she
Yeah.
was very nice about it, very, very respectful. And so, since I was not getting anything out of the people at the desk, we went and sat down and had a talk about it. And I explained to her that when I was a kid, canvas runners and trainers were what we had.
Mhm.
So way before Adidas and the other plasticky shoes came out,
Yeah.
just really, really plain. And they came in black or white.
Mhm.
I'd seen a pair of red ones and I wanted them, but we were pretty poor and we
Yeah.
were never able to get them. So finally, as an adult, I saw them. And part of the whole wearing the suit for me is I'm co-opting the look of the people who kept me down all of my
Mm.
life.
Mhm.
They wore suits. They were
Mhm.
official and were important. So they wore suits. So I took their suit, but I wanted to make it my own. So I
Mhm.
put these red shoes on.
I
And
love
the
it.
thing about it is if people would laugh at me or belittle me for my dress choices or whatever in that particular case, I'd look down and I'd see those shoes and I'd be like, no, no, uh-uh.
You can't do
This
that.
is my statement. This is me.
Mhm.
This is not, the shoes are kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when I explained it to Jody, that it was just my little
I knew
way
you were talking about her.
of being an individual within a group and wanting to
Mhm.
just be myself. She took
Yeah.
that and
Yeah.
she made it into what it was. In fact, it wasn't up until even a couple of years ago that anyone even asked, well, where did this all start?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody thought it was just this generic thing that had just
Yeah.
happened, and it all happened in Sudbury, Ontario, at the
Yeah.
front desk of a hotel that wouldn't let me sign in. It's kind of a
She
weird story, but they often are.
yeah, well, life's interesting and because of odd stories like that.
Well,
So,
as you know, Jody and I do talk quite often, and what I
yeah.
didn't know at the time was they were looking for a symbol,
Mhm.
and it was like I just happened to waltz in with my silly red shoes at the right time and had
Yeah.
the right attitude and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
that it fit. And then it has grown to hundreds of countries. We're in
Mhm.
multiple languages all around the world.
Yeah.
These are from FASD, no FASD in Australia.
Yeah. Super cute.
And yeah, it's hopefully given us a voice
Mhm.
where we can be seen for who we are, not who people think we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's that something that I come up against all the time. My in California, there are pockets where FASD is known and, researched and diagnosed. I don't live in one of those pockets. I live in one of the pockets where all the higher ups in the systems of care, when it comes to FASD, bury their heads in the sand and want to pretend it doesn't apply to anyone who lives here. We're all okay. Um,
Hmm.
or mental health will point to developmental agencies and say, oh, it's a behavioral thing, go over there. And the behavioral agencies point at mental health and say, it's, or no, the other way. Mental health says it's developmental, go to behavior. And behavioral agencies say, no, it's behavioral, go over to mental health. And that way everyone's going here and nobody gets the help. And it is truly frustrating. But all we can do is keep trying one day at a time and maybe wearing red shoes.
It's
Call
all about
attention to it.
making a good noise,
Yeah, yeah,
as someone said, and I'm constantly on people to make more noise.
yeah.
Annoy your political representatives. Make this a priority for people
Hmm.
who don't see it for what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it is the largest single cause of developmental disabilities in the Western world,
Hmm. Hmm.
larger than autism, cerebral
Yeah.
palsy, and I always
Spina
forget the third one.
bifida put together.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Combined,
Hmm.
it and those numbers, I think, are really low when you consider how long alcohol
Yeah.
has been with the human race.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we all got a little bit of a
Yeah.
little
And
touch.
absolutely. And you see little references to it throughout history. Right? There's references in European literature, there's references in the Bible, the knowledge is out there, but it never became a thing worthy of study until 50
No,
years ago, 51 years now.
yeah,
So, but
boy,
it's
time flies.
amazing. You said something at the beginning of the hour that um, holds true, and it just grieves my heart to no end that when people learn about it, they're just willing to take whatever they've gotten out of that 10-minute, 30-minute lecture and call it good. I face that with type 1 diabetes because we're a small minority of the greater diabetic umbrella,
Mhm.
right? And it's so frustrating when people want to treat me as though I have type 2. I can't tell you how many medical providers have almost killed me.
Oh, I can believe that.
And, to have that misunderstanding out of ignorance occur also with FASD, it's just so very frustrating, you
It
know?
is, and luckily here in Canada, they're starting to hear us.
Yeah,
There's still a long ways that we need to go,
yeah,
but it's a really good beginning, and it makes
mhm,
my heart full of joy
yeah,
to see people just grassroots, ordinary people out there
Yeah.
telling their stories and sharing their experience with each other. Um, I run Flying with Broken Wings, which is, wow, we're up to almost 8,000 people now.
Yeah.
And we have probably the largest number of people on the spectrum actively in the group anywhere.
Hmm. Yeah.
And people told me continuously when I first came up with this idea to bring professionals, caregivers, and people on the spectrum into an equal footing
Hmm.
in a group. I said, it can't be done.
Oh, yes, it
Well,
can.
these people in the
Yeah.
group are proving
Yeah.
everyone, all the naysayers, wrong. It's not
Yeah.
anything that I do. The only thing I think I do, I take credit for, is I don't have any rules.
Hmm.
However, you're expected to treat others and you will be treated as a human being with all of the rights and respects that that
Right.
entails.
Right.
That's the only thing that we push, but we have no actual rules.
Yeah.
It's it's not my group, it's our group.
Right.
We all share to make it what it is. And it's
Yeah.
not always pretty. We have people who are quitting, they come back. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they
Yeah.
do.
I've
There are
seen a few dust
disagreements.
ups.
Yeah, they do happen. But
Yeah.
quite often, the people, when they've had some time to think, will start to
Hmm.
understand that other people sharing does not diminish their sharing or their
Right.
feelings either.
Right.
So
Right.
it it can get a little tricky sometimes,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Mm.
But I
So,
love it because the people make the group what it is.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's not top down. It's run by
Yeah.
the members.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I think there's definitely something to that because, I got my training through facets, right, with the neurobehavioral model. And they talk about when you facilitate group trainings to try and include both professionals and parents and family because you learn from one another because the professionals might have the latest book knowledge, but again, with knowledge without application, it's kind of worthless, right?
Yeah.
And both groups of people, whether the professionals are therapists or whether they're social workers or whether they're educators, you have to learn to listen to one another and see each other's role as being different but on the same team.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I quite often will, as a way of pointing this out, I refer to myself as an owner operator at this
Mm.
point. Okay, I can tell you how it runs. I
Yeah.
can tell you what steps it takes to put it in gear.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that from a doctor or anyone,
Right.
but you'll get it from someone who is an owner operator,
Yeah.
much like a truck driver kind of
Yeah.
thing. They know
Yeah.
the job.
My mind went right there. I
That's
I
usually
was
where you see it. Yeah.
I was a truck stop chaplain for a while, so
Ah,
my mind went right there.
yep. O and O.
So, what's next on your radar, RJ?
Oh, oh, well, I'm getting involved with a group. It's called Never Too Late NTL, and it's a group that is working to actively build a cushion. Um, our kids, young adults, age out usually from the system at 18 or 20 or
Mhm,
wherever, depending on your state, province, locality. And usually that is a really abrupt ending to supports that are
mhm,
available to younger
yeah,
people that are not necessarily there for adults. And
right.
even just switching from juvenile to adult programs can be a really horrific process.
Mhm,
And people end
mhm,
up without money, a place to live. There's a
yeah,
whole lot going on for them just emotionally at
yeah,
that age to suddenly be told, get out of the house.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
what
Add
this
add
group
to that the
does,
dismaturity,
oh,
right? If
no
you have an
kidding.
18-year-old who emotionally and socially is 9, there's no way you would expect a 9-year-old to go fend for themselves.
Yes. And what Never Too Late wants to do is build a cushion that gives a couple of extra or few years, whatever is needed, so they can, put in supplementary services and start before
Mhm.
18. So
Mhm.
everything becomes a smoother transition,
Yeah.
and, try to find ways to keep these people at home if that's where they want to be
Mhm.
until they reach, where they're comfortable to moving out.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really think we need. It made such a difference
Yeah.
in my life
Yeah.
that I think it's one of the most valuable things that we can give to our young adults is the
Mhm.
ability to just grow into their brains
Yeah. Delay the launch. Yeah.
if that's what they want. If
Yeah.
that's if
Yeah.
they're like having a hard time with anxiety, don't feel confident,
Mm.
why push them out
Yeah.
if you don't have to? So
Right. Right.
never too late is a program that I'm really interested in. I'm hoping that we can work together to, for people with FASD specifically, but for all people with
Mhm.
developmental disabilities,
Mhm.
make it a kinder, softer
Yeah.
world. It's
Yeah.
hard, and you
Yeah.
don't have to just throw kids out into the alleyway at
Yeah.
18 kind of thing. We can
Yeah.
make that a soft landing instead of a hard fall.
Yeah.
So and then I'm actually taking a little while off. I just had surgery about a month ago, and I'm still getting over that.
Oh.
Um, but in May, I'm to go to Ottawa, Ontario, our nation's capital, and it's actually a small town outside of Ottawa where I get to speak to a class of elementary school children in
Okay.
the morning, high schoolers in the afternoon, and the next day we're having a fun run where good
Okay.
old RJ gets to be a grand marshal. I've never been a grand marshal, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
That's a perfect venue for your red shoes.
I'm not running. I'm going to be 63 years old this year. I'm lucky if I trot these days.
Right, me too.
But it's a nice thought. And
Yeah.
that's what's so frustrating is I've always been very athletic all of my life, and it's
Mhm.
hard for my not 60
Yeah.
some year old brain to tell my 60 some year old body you can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That is hard. My arthritis is a lot harder mentally to deal with than the diabetes because there's things I want to do and my body's just like, girlfriend, uh-uh.
Mm.
So,
I thought
and
I
that's something a lot of us face, right? That because of the damage as we were being formed, but also because of the excess stress from having to work so hard at a lot of the cognitive stuff, making energy less available for the rest of the body stuff. I think we tend to break down a little sooner than a lot of folk.
well, luckily I've been able to avoid that, but I have heard that from a number of people, yes, that
Hmm.
that could be a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
um I was born with a heart defect that kept me out of the military and then disappeared. Nobody could find it. And then when I was, I guess it was about 2017 or something, they just decided to try and kill me one time. And just out of the blue, I had myself a heart attack that went on for 4 days. I'm not stupid, but I thought it was my back injury. I'm not able to pinpoint where a pain is. I'll know
Yeah.
I'm having pain somewhere in this
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
but
It's
I'm not able.
generalized. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able to pinpoint exactly where something hurts. So I thought it was my back, and it wasn't until it actually started radiating down my arm. It's like, oh yeah, hi, yeah. And 3 days later, I was back on my bike because my heart attack was not caused by my lifestyle. I didn't have high cholesterol or
Yeah.
any of those problems. It was a birth defect.
Yeah.
So 3 days later, I'm back on my bike again. I went for cardio, and they said, "Well, here." I had to give them a list of the stuff that I was still doing. They're like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." You just keep doing what you're doing. You're done here.
So are you a roadie or a mountain bike guy?
Oh, I love road bikes.
I
I
prefer
like
them
it.
myself.
I have a 26 speed that I don't get out on enough, but I love it when I get a nice quiet road and I can just start pumping those gears up.
Yeah.
And I fly.
We have the mountains here along, the Central Valley were rimmed by mountains that are part of the Sierras. And there's one particular that when my husband and I had a tandem,
Mm.
we would get up to the top and we'd always have to have a ride. um, and because we're not going back up. And we would take the top of the mountain was probably 8,000 some feet. And we would ride it down to the truck stop at the interstate, which was, I think, 3,500. And we would fly,
Oh
absolutely
yeah,
fly. We were going faster than the cars.
I can believe that.
I was having a blast, but I wasn't responsible for avoiding potholes. So I enjoyed it a lot more than my husband.
I
But
imagine.
we never had to pedal.
No, no, no.
It was great
That
fun.
um because I I'm a runner as in running away,
Mhm.
but I can't run to save my life because I kick myself in the butt. So that doesn't really work. So bikes were my way of running.
Yeah,
And I always had a bike, and they were like my prized possession because that represented freedom, getting
yeah,
away.
yeah.
And yeah, I
That's
love
what
a
my
good bike
husband
ride.
does for stress management, but he prefers mountain bikes, and, so because we
With
live
the
in the
way
foothills, and
with
he's
the way
just
traffic is getting nowadays, it's probably better to get off the street and
yeah.
just go out someplace. Um,
Well, la last year he did over 5,000 miles, so enough to go from where we live in Central California to Pittsburgh and back, and,
it's a fair distance. I
yeah,
had always wanted to do like a cross country trek when
mhm,
I was younger, but I could never
yeah,
find anybody to go with me, and I just didn't have the cojones to do it myself all
yeah,
alone.
yeah.
So
My cousin did. He went up and down the Rockies, and,
I
more
didn't have
power
the
to
self
him.
confidence to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe now I would have a lot better of a chance at that, but at
yeah,
that point in my life, no, just wasn't anything that I could commit to,
yeah.
even though I wanted to really
Well,
badly.
you could do it as the slow pace, right? Go for a stretch and then stop and present somewhere on FASD and then go to the next place and
Yeah, that involves
keep
a lot of
sprint.
carrying of a lot of stuff. I don't, if I can get a van or a bus or something, I would love to do that. Just drive from
Mhm.
town to town, set up and say, hey, who wants to talk about FASD? Come on over.
Yeah, yeah. It's always
Silly
been one of
dream.
my passions to because I discovered in the sun toward the sunset of my career that I love training. And I would love to be able to do a presentation, make enough money to put fuel in the RV,
Hmm.
and then go to the next place and
Yeah.
spend our retirement that way. It would be ideal.
Well,
So
I used to talk about this, but now I realize that putting it together would be something way beyond my capabilities. But if someone wants to help me, we can probably make it happen.
all
And
right, call to
FASD,
action, everybody.
an
Anyone want to volunteer to
FASD,
help RJ or me?
no, no, an FASD bus where we can get a
Yes,
number of adults on a bus and go to a number of presentations. And if they want, they can, do a presentation, switch off somebody else, get on the bus, move to the next place. I would
that would
love
be
to be able to do
awesome.
that with the summer. Just give
Yes.
everybody the opportunity, if they want, to get up there and experience what it's like to be on
Yeah.
stage and talk about FASD. For
Yeah.
some people, they're going to love it. Other people are going to say, I probably would like to do something else next time. And
That would
that's
be
great.
so
But
fun.
I want to give them the opportunity
Yeah.
because so many times we're denied opportunities that other things that other people can do. So
Mhm.
why not create those opportunities ourselves?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun.
Yeah,
So,
it's a silly idea that I had, but I
well,
would
we
love to
can
see.
keep each other posted if anyone if anyone wants to get hold of RJ or myself, please
All
do,
we need is a bus.
right? And somebody with enough money for the fuel.
Exactly.
That would be a blast. That would be a blast. So
Or a Fred
that's in the
Flintstone bus.
fantasy column, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That in the meantime, it's just about raising awareness,
yeah,
finding
yeah.
support services for people who don't have them, and just
Mhm.
being generally creative in
Yeah,
presenting ourselves to the rest of the world.
yeah. And
We're largely
helping,
misunderstood.
yeah,
Many people think we're violent or we're this or that.
yeah.
And we need to change that
And
perspective.
anytime it comes up in the news about a mass killing and oh, so and so's mother drank, then we
Yeah.
just go right down that rabbit hole of misinformation again.
Yeah, I saw one recently where the defense tried to use that, and luckily the judge did not accept it. Um,
Mhm.
it doesn't absolve us because
No,
we have a developmental disability.
no,
We still need to adhere to the rules of a society. Absolutely.
yeah. But I do think it should inform the not the outcome, but the what's the word I'm looking for? It should inform the sentencing,
Absolutely.
right?
And
So that something
luckily,
is rehabilitative.
another good thing that here in Canada, we're getting more FASD informed courts.
Yes.
We have workers that are able to go in and speak to the
Yeah.
client's condition
Yeah.
and help the judge make a fairer decision.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
yes, you still have to pay the price, but
Yeah.
if there are extenuating circumstances, maybe that can be modified how you
Yeah.
pay that particular price.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
I
you know it's
Mhm.
these steps that are going to change things for the next generation. And
Mhm.
like I said earlier, what I'm seeing now with the younger people is that they are pumped, they're full of
Yeah.
energy, and they are not going to be kept down
Yeah.
the way that we were, because the knowledge is
Yeah.
there and they're getting it
Yeah.
and they're learning. I love it.
Yeah. I'm perpetually in awe at the young adults who are in the adult leadership collaborative of the FASD change makers. What a terrific group of young adults.
Yeah, that is one
They're
group that has is doing some interesting work, and
Mhm.
internationally, not just
Right.
Canadian.
Right. Yeah, I'm totally totally impressed with those young people. So of course, once we're in our 60s, they're all young, right?
Oh, I don't know, but I don't know what it's like to be an adult, let alone a senior. I have no idea.
Well, the concept of self truly is ageless.
I
We're
don't think so.
just we're just who we are.
And and my hair doesn't lie. This isn't dyed. It's not changing. I mean,
Mine
this
is.
but this is freaking me out. I have to tell people I don't dye my hair. No, really, I don't. Look at it.
Well,
I
I
never thought I'd have that problem. Considering genetically the family I come from tend to go bald in their early
Mm,
30s. Sorry, family, it's out there. People know. You can
well,
tell.
yeah. Every time we do a Zoom call in my family, my mother blurts out, I mean, bless her heart with dementia, there's no filter. If it comes in her mouth, mind, it's going out her mouth. She'll say to my brothers, my nephews, "You're going bald,"
I don't have a
or "They're
filter
getting
sometimes too.
heavy." Ooh.
I ran into an old friend I hadn't seen for about 30 years, and the first thing he says, "Oh my God, man, where's your hair?" He's not a friend anymore. He took it really, really bad.
Oh,
And I just thought it was like I was just shocked. And in the moment, I didn't even think. And I just said, "Where's your hair?" Because, well, again, this was, the early 80s, late 70s. He had an afro, a blonde afro. And when I saw him, he had nothing, just a little on the side. and I can't age people in my mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Again, concrete thinking. If I
Mhm.
remember you a certain way, that's how I expect to see you
Yep.
25 years later. And people don't stay the same. Well,
No, no.
people say
And
I do. If you look at old pictures of me, I basically look the same. So I don't know
and
what
I
that
talk
means.
about that too when I'm talking to people about the face, right? The FASD face or the FAS face. That so many of those signs start to change when we hit puberty because we would look really bizarre if we still had our baby faces.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it
completely.
just, yeah, people don't think about that. It's like, oh, I don't, you don't have the face. Well, I'm grown up.
Yeah, that and again, when you're looking at only 10% of us have the three main facial
Right?
features. We only accept the three in Canada now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know other jurisdictions make it four or five, but we
Yeah.
go with the three. And only about 10% of us have all three of them.
Yeah.
Only about
Yeah.
20% of us have any of them.
Yeah.
And 80% of us are, as they used to say, invisible.
Right. I will
Only
say,
invisible if you don't know where to look.
right? And I would say to those who do have the smaller eye openings, as you get older, if you develop cataracts, here's a word to the wise, they use a machine to measure the shape of your eyeball. And that's how, sorry, my work phone's going. That's how they determine the prescription. Because when they take out your defective lens, they
Hmm.
replace it with a built-in prescription in theory, so you don't need glasses, right?
Hmm.
So the ophthalmologist where I went had one person, that's all he does is measure the shape of people's eyes. And he's like, open wide. And I'm like, I am opening wide. No, wider, wider. So I was like this. Well, when you're like this, it changes the shape
Yeah.
of your eye. And so now I have 20/20 vision if I'm bugged out.
Yeah.
How far down the road can you drive like this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the ophthalmologist didn't take my constructive criticism very gracefully. I go to someone else now.
I can understand that.
It's like, what the
The
heck, dude? You put the wrong prescription in my eyes.
Yikes. Um, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Being not heard by the people you're talking to, especially in somewhere like the medical institutions and
Yeah,
things, that's way too common.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
realize they're overworked, they're busy, life is hectic. But
yeah,
sometimes I just wish they'd stop and listen.
yeah. And they do need continuing education units. They need CEUs. Pick one on FASD.
Please, please. We're slowly getting there.
Yeah,
Not fast enough for me, but
yeah,
at least we're starting.
yeah.
And
The
um,
next generation will have it much easier, or at least somewhat
uh,
easier because of the work that we're doing.
well, hopefully we'll have sort of blazed a path where they can tell their own stories and put their own pressure on
Yeah,
institutions and professionals. And
yeah.
yeah,
We'll
I
toil
don't
away in hopes for the someday when it has the snowball effect.
absolutely.
So,
One day the world's gonna realize that they need us.
yeah. Well,
We're the
RJ,
different
this,
thinkers.
this conversation, yeah, aren't we? So, I that's I think the world is just waking up to neurodiversity and
Yes.
the benefits that we bring, no matter what the cause of our diversity. But it has been such a joy to talk with you today and have you on this episode of Living with FASD. I can't believe, I mean, we've been at it for a while. So it's
it's
been a blast. I hope to have you back on again sometime.
it's been fun. Let's do this again.
All right. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in again this week. Your faithfulness is very appreciated. Please like and subscribe and share because when there's a conservative 1 in 20 people living with it, and only 0.01% of the people know they're living with it, more people need to learn about FASD. So please share, because again, 1 in 20, guaranteed you know a lot of people that have this. And as RJ and I both experienced, it just all of a sudden the pieces of life fit together and things make sense. So if you share the podcast, you will share a piece in people finding peace. So
Just
please
tell
come.
them RJ sent you.
Yeah, there we go. Come back next week for another episode of Living with FASD. Until then, have a great week, everybody. Bye bye.